All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel, and thank you for tuning in to the KSR YouTube channel, where we are again working on the Cutlass. And can't really tell from the outside that it's after hours, but you can look around and nobody's... Oh wait, there's somebody still here.
I basically live here now.
Do you ever do anything though? Like,
no, I
everybody,
clock out and I just
like, we always catch you just like standing right. Of course, it is after hours. So
yeah.
What's it like?
Nobody else is here.
Almost 7?
I'm the one that's lazy. I'm the only one here, besides you.
But if you don't do anything.
I mean, I don't know. I just like being here.
So you can maybe tell there's been some stuff going on with Steve and Val's Camaro. Let me get that right. But I've been piecing together a little video on that, showing you guys like some of the stuff I've been doing it's kind of boring stuff, but it needs to be done to finish the car. So let's see if we can show you that in an upcoming video. But today we are back on the Cutlass, and I thought I was going to be doing one thing in this video, and that was going to be making the spacers, the machined inserts that go in here that are threaded, so that I could locate that dash bar. But they got lost in the mail or the shipping. Thanks, FedEx. Appreciate you. So we're going to do some stuff back here. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. All right, well, while you're here, if you haven't already, and you like race car building stuff, whether it be my car or Steve's car or road race car, or we need a name for the Nova, so I need to film some videos on it. You can tell maybe by the picture that there's some more stuff happening with that, some shiny bars and whatnot. But
how many people are going to want to call it Black Betty?
Oh,
every black car is called Black Betty these days, I guess.
Nah.
No?
Nah.
Maybe that's back in
There's
your
too
day.
many. No, there's too many people that have already said that. So, anyways, please subscribe to the channel if you like watching race car building stuff. And if you want some KSR merch, winwithksr.com, as well as we have parts on there for sale. You can call us if you need any kind of aftermarket parts for your race car. We are direct with a lot of companies like Holley and AFCO and TRZ and Racetech Seats and all kinds of parts companies that you may need to help make your race car go faster. So, speaking of race cars, we need to keep building mine so that I can make it to Sick Week next year. And hey, I heard the chuckle. I heard that chuckle. Hey, how many years have you been trying to make Sick Week with your car, buddy?
Buddy, this thing's been down for 20 years.
Hey, 18.
This thing hasn't seen the road.
Hold on, we gotta keep talking.
Can't let the camera hear the music.
Can't let the camera hear the music.
This thing's been on jack stands longer than I've been alive.
No, it hasn't.
The fact that you just thought about that.
I did have to think about that.
20 years, 2005.
So I took this car apart in 2006, I believe.
I was 7. I was 7 years old.
Well, things happen. Got married, had kids, built a business, got divorced. All that fun stuff. Life happens. And yeah, so I won a track championship with this car in 2003, bracket racing it. Raced it 2004, and I think a couple of races in 2005. And then this happened. And it's time to go get this thing put back together. But today, I want to start going more rearward with stuff, since I'm waiting on some more of the things for the front before I can actually finalize any of that up there.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, just leave.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Leave me here all by myself. Fine. Be that way. He gone. So I've got to trim off some of the stuff right there, which am I showing it right in the camera? Yeah, this stuff right there. We're going to trim some of that off, measure out where the center of the rear end is going to be, and then, not to show too much of a spoiler for Steve's video, but I'm going to use this to figure out my shock mounting distance so that I can, you know, figure out where the center line of the rear end is, measure back to where the center line of the shock will be, and the idea is that we get the shock crossmember right in line with where the shocks are going to be, and they'll also be high enough so that I'm able to run a 8-inch stroke shock in the back of my car. So let's stop talking, let's do some grinding and make a mess, and then clean up the mess, and then put some bars in. Here we go. Well, since this is my only video edit this week, decided to go ahead and put in the extra effort and go ahead and do voiceover of the time lapse. And you know, from what you guys have said, that's what you would prefer me to do. So when I have the opportunity to do it, that's what I'm going to do. And I will admit, like, this time lapse right here isn't necessarily all that exciting. I mean, yeah, there's some sparks going and craziness happening, but I'm just grinding off some pieces of the original shock and spring bucket that were still left on the inside part of the frame rail that we are still going to be keeping. And I guess I thought that it would be a good thing to leave in, you know, this progression of videos on the build of the car, because it just shows you some of the stuff that you have to go through to do one of these stock suspension builds and stock frame rail builds. The level that we're taking this car to, it really would be faster to cut out or just leave out all of the stock frame and say build it with a 4-link, or, you know, completely just do whatever we had to do with that Marilat upper cross member. Say we want to keep it stock style suspension, you know, we could easily build a frame, a tube chassis section that would be way lighter than the factory one, and it would also be easier to build because you're not having to work within the confines of all of the stock frame rails and keep pieces of the stock frame rail to meet the rules. But that's kind of part of these things. And I will admit that I was kind of putting off all that cutting and grinding just because it's not very fun. You know, you're cutting, sparks are going everywhere. Even with a face shield, I still got a little piece in my eye, or at least a piece of grid or something, but I was able to get it out, thank goodness. And as you can see now, it makes a mess, and all of that mess on the ground is either metal from the frame rail, or it is like the metal dust from the frame rail, or it is the dust from the cutting disc. So I'm cleaning all of this up because I know the next step is going to be me getting on the ground and measuring around and figuring out my location of the rear end housing, the axle center line. So I'm marking on the quarter panel here and hanging a string that's going to be on the center line of the axle. I centered the wheel. You know, my imaginary axle is now centered in the wheel well. And then I'm comparing that side to side. And then I'm eyeballing across the strings, lining up the strings with each other, and then putting a mark on the frame so that I get kind of my chassis or my axle center line on the frame. Part of all this stuff, I do want to build a nice chassis jig, and that may be coming sooner than later because we've got some more stuff in the works that just may need it. All right, everybody. Well, we are back the next morning. Just got here, and it is a beautiful day here in Florida. Really, really nice outside. It seems cooler this year. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it seems cooler. Like we were in the 40s this past weekend, which for April in Florida, it just feels cooler than it usually does, which I appreciate because it's cooler to run the AC in the shop. Keep the shop nice and cool. But as you saw in that last little time lapse there, got that all that stuff ground off of there, did some measuring, did some calculating, did some figuring, and yeah, we basically got it ready to put a bar in there. And what I need to do now is measure the distance between those two frame rails, measure me a bar, and then go design a bar in Bentech, because I'm gonna bring the bar up so that, like I said earlier, the shock has plenty of room for the car to have a really low ride height, but still not fully compress the shock. So my rear end will probably have some version of these brackets on there. I may even go ahead and put 4-link brackets on the rear end, as well as the stock suspension brackets, so I could switch back and forth, or if I ever do decide to put a 4-link into this car, I will already have the rear end for it. And one of the things that I did when I was designing this out, the width of those parallel inner frame rails, that's actually the same width that's in Steve and Val's car. So you can see the 4-link brackets there on the, right there on the rear part of the frame. So kind of keeping that in mind for the future, potentially, maybe I should just go ahead and 4-link the thing now, but I am a stock suspension kind of guy and think that I can go plenty fast and still have the stock suspension points, even though, yes, I know they are modified with the bracket there, as well as there's going to be a multi-hole bracket on the frame. But I'm just meeting the rules. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Yeah. So just building the car to fit the rules and potentially take advantage of any weight breaks that a stock suspension car gets. And yes, this really short upper bar 4-link, and especially with it angled, does some weird stuff with the instant center as it swings through extension and all that other stuff. So if I can make it work, it'll be awesome. If not, a few years down the road, we'll switch it to a 4-link. But for now, she's going to be stock suspension. So let's stop talking and let's go bend up a bar. See if I can get something done in the next half hour to an hour so that I can work on my real job stuff. Because, you know, this car is really just playtime for me. Finally getting the chance to work on it and do some stuff with it. So, yeah, enough talking. Let's go. All right, well, we are on to the final time lapse of this video, and you're actually going to get to see some real work in this video instead of just the cutting and grinding like the last one was. I mean, I guess that was really still real work also, had to be done. And, you know, when we're doing these things, I really try and make all of the car look good from every angle. So that's one of the things that I believe in when building a car is I want to be able to look at it from the top side, the bottom side, the front side, the back side, the left side, the right side, inside and outside, and every bit of the car look like we put effort into making it look nice. You're not going to see half cut off pieces like, you know, like that shock bucket that we cut off the frame in the last time lapse. I could have just left that there and put the tube not in line with that, but I really wanted it to look nice. So ground the frame down nice and smooth, and I think the end result is going to be really nice looking. So this part of the time lapse, you can see I've cut out and I've measured a tube. I've already designed the tube in Bentech, and you may have seen little blip on the screen, and maybe I'll show that again if you guys want me to, of how I use Bendtech and our Rogue Fab bender to really get the tube dialed in to where it's really close with very, very minimal scrap. Now, this tube was a little bit more of a tough notch just because it's not a straight notch. Like, there's the angle of the tube, and then the tube is angled down to the stock frame rail, and obviously the frame rails are straight up and down. So since I want a really, really tight fit on all of the tube joints, I cut and ground until I basically had to tap that bar in. And in doing that, it lets me, tap the bar with a hammer to get it perfectly level in the car. And then that lets me work on getting it square with the other bars in the car and taking a lot of measurements without it just being able to move if, somebody looks at it funny. So once I got it level, as far as the horizontal part of the tube being level there, and then I made sure that it was square to the other bars that are in the car, or parallel with the other horizontal bars like the Marilat bar and the number 15 bar that goes across the main hoop there on the bottom. Once I've done all of that, I've got reason and the tube is supported, and I can go ahead and fully weld it in. So now that shock cross member is in, I've gone ahead and started making the continuation of the inner frame rails to connect, the Marilat upper control arm box along with the bars that run down to the number 1 bar. So it took me a couple of shots to get these just right, because if one of those bars is longer than the other one, well, when you tap it in, now the first bar you put in is loose. So it took me a little bit to get them just right, because I was also trying to make sure that they were like dead even with each other as far as when you really look at them. And actually, if you saw right there, I cut my tack welds, moved them just a little bit, and then do a bunch of double checking here, decide that everything is good enough, and go ahead and start fully welding the things. So you can kind of see that it's starting to get a little busy in the car as far as being able to easily get in and weld all of these joints with a good angle on the joints. But that's just part of building these things. And next week, I'm probably going to lift the entire car up and see about being able to weld or just use the lift to lift the car up and down to maybe be able to stand under the car and weld, now that it's got enough chassis back in it that it's not so floppy that I'm worried about the car changing shape or distorting, by lifting it up from the tube chassis here. So that's getting to the point of wrapping up this time lapse and getting close to wrapping up the end of this video. Stay tuned to see what we're going to talk about and then what we're going to do next on this project, my personal 78 Cutlass. All right, well, I was going to try and catch something that's very rarely seen on camera, but I go in and I change the battery, come back out, he's sitting in the chair again.
I'm doing my notes, I'm about to clock out. I was just working.
You were, I saw it, but the people didn't see it.
Because you only bust out the camera when I'm not working.
Well, normally I'm only filming when there's barely anybody here because I'm filming with my car, but check out, we got some bars in for the funny car.
Might be warm. Cage.
I didn't touch it long enough to figure out if it was warm, but number 18 bar, number 15 bars, or no, 15 and 18.
Yeah.
Got them backwards. Finished the X. Dash bars in, the bars that we did a a bar that connects to the firewall here, goes through, because the front end bolts onto there. So now the entire front end of that is all bolted together. But you guys saw I got some extra stuff done on the Cutlass. And I think that's gonna wrap up the work we do in the Cutlass on this video anyways. And might be wondering why this looks really high. I don't think it is really high because I did lots of measuring and things, and I think I left it on my desk. Did I leave it on my desk? Yeah. So the intention is for the shocks to mount under this cross member, because there's going to be a continuation of this down, for under the trunk floor where the fuel cell mounts. It might even be a little high, just so, I don't know. I got to see how all that works out with the height for the parachute bar, where it needs to be. But we've got these killer shock mounts from TRZ Motorsports. And, well, I have to notch it to clear the... See, the idea is that it fits like that, but there's kind of a tube in the way from it fitting perfectly level there. But that will go like that. And then the shock fully compressed is 15 inches. And then, like I was saying earlier, we're going to use something similar to these brackets. And by the time you get those on there, I think all the math works out. For my estimated ride height, all that other stuff. But one thing I did that's, I think, kind of cool is, this is one bar, and then that is another bar, but they are the same angle. And then this is perfectly level. And then that matches there. It's within, like this one I missed a little bit. It's about 2/10 off. I'll give it that. Be honest with you guys. I just barely missed it. Just barely. But it's good enough for who it's for. It's me. So we will continue working on, I did get my metal in to make the threaded insert for the dash bar. So I'll machine that next video, probably next week, because I've got my kids this weekend, so I won't be down here working on the car. And next weekend, I don't have my kids, but I will be, well, I'll be in Charlotte. Gonna go see Drew, and might just see our buddy Clay, because they are racing 4-wide in Charlotte next weekend. Get to the race if you can, because Top Fuel is awesome, especially 4-wide. This will be my first 4-wide experience, so I'm pretty excited about that. But chipping away, moving along on this thing. I have to decide if I'm going to go ahead and do some of the back bar stuff next, or, like I said, do some of that. I think I'll probably go ahead and machine these inserts, make the spacers, go ahead and bolt that in, and then that will be located, because we actually have to pick this up to get the 632 out. 632 that I won in Indy last year. Ended up selling it. Just didn't foresee myself using it in anything, and decided we could use the money here at the shop to buy some new tools, which we'll be showing you what we're buying with that here pretty soon. Once we get it sold, paid for, then we'll buy tools, not the other way around. But definitely excited for how this thing is progressing, slow and steady. And yeah, chipping away at it little by little to the point where eventually we will have a rolling chassis. Then we'll take it back apart, take it over to powder coat, bring it back here and reassemble and start wiring stuff. Still got a long ways to go, but appreciate all of you following along, all the words of encouragement, and all the comments and likes and shares, and everybody subscribing and following along. So we'll see you guys next time.